Hey guys, it's Penelope in London, and we're looking at the new moon that's coming up in about 5 hours' time. And what I'm going to do is explain the new moon and a few things that I see. So it's in Aquarius, and the sun, you can see here. Let me get my pointer. Here it is. Okay, so you can see that we have the sun and the moon at here 12:19. And there it's at 5:45 a.m. GMT time. You're 5 hours behind if you're in New York, and then 8 hours behind if you're in California, and then you're ahead if you're in Australia. So depending on where you are, you don't have to take my time as being, but that's the time for, the degree is going to be the same for all around the world, which is pretty obvious maybe to people who know astrology anyway. Then we've got, it's touching in with Saturn there. We can see that we've got this conjunction going on with Saturn, which is restriction. And I observed something earlier that I never really thought about, which I'm going to share, which was really interesting on Saturn through the sign of Aquarius. We've also got Pluto is conjunct Mercury. Now, this really defines that there's there's stuff being uncovered at this time. We've got Venus moving in, you can see, and also Mars. When Mars last crossed over Pluto, that was around March 2020. That was around, I can't remember the exact date, but around in March when we had the beginning of the lockdown. So it's coming towards the end of the cycle and going into a new cycle. And then Venus the same. So in evolutionary astrology, there's a lot of definition around Mars and Venus, and also Pluto and Mars, which I won't go into depth now. I'll make another video on that, but it's quite fascinating stuff, because Mars is our libido, not just sexual, but the libido that gets us going. And it's also our impulses. If you think about, we can be impulsive about things, but it's also our direction, our directed goals, and what we want, our desire nature. As again with Pluto, which is in our own underworld, it's also what's unconscious in us. And as with the anima and the animus, I really confuse people now who don't, if you don't know Jung, Carl Gustav Jung, then he spoke of the anima, which is the feminine aspect inside the male, and then the animus, which is the masculine inside the feminine, which is very important part of my work that I'm learning to integrate for myself. And that's basically where we have introspection, and through that introspection we become aware of that in us, that's the conditioning, but also our reactions. It's a lot more than that, but that's the way of describing it. So it's almost like we begin to evolve and have a conversation with ourselves, and we begin to guide ourselves. We become, we evolve and just egotistical behaviors, and just, consensus also behaviors. So we then become individuated through the inner work. And how that happens for a lot of people will have a meltdown, through loss, betrayal or something. And then the beauty of the human being steps forth, like who we really are. But the materialistic is not such the big thing anymore, and such, like a lot deeper, but a bit of a rundown on that. We got Jupiter beautifully in the sign of Pisces, and it's been amazing to see people really come together over the last few weeks, like all of the truckers all over the world, in different countries. They're doing it in England, I think, over the weekend. We have the convoy in Canada, and then also in Australia, that's going on. I think I saw something in Germany too. So it's quite beautiful that the collective is coming together, and it's in Neptune. Sorry, it's the ruler of Pisces is Neptune. So it's our, beyond this realm. I think it really is, where people become more conscious of their, dreams, the dreams for humanity. The Aquarius stuff is really where we have hopes and ideals, and, the group, the dream of each other, the dreams of the collective, not dreams as in sleep, but, the desires that we want. If we look at the moon here, we've got it's liberation from conditioning, which we're trying to do. It's also past life trauma and long-term, that maybe we can't remember, our imprints in previous lives, if we believe in that. And then clearly a lot of trauma in our childhood would come into that as well, stuff we don't remember. We have individuality with the Aquarius moon, or Aquarius, not just the moon. That can be the sun as well. It can be rebellion. We're seeing some of that, but in a healthy way, I can see. It's individuation, like-minded groups. So you can see people forming groups because people have different beliefs and hopes and dreams. And we have group hysteria we can have as well. There can be secret societies. Some people have had to go, be more private about what they're sharing because of being shut down and stuff like that. It's the tribe, it's community. It can be fragmentation. It can also be anarchy, long-term memory. It's also to do with where we can feel alienated. A lot of us have experienced that over the last couple of years. Trauma, mass trauma, the splitting, it's where we're unique, where we can be shocking and have shocking events, and it can be projection and also hyperactivity, and it's revolutionary. It's where we could have been ostracized or cast out. It's also the astral plane, and it can be telepathic and objective awareness. And in a way, we can see that when people get together like that, it's not just the media, I don't think, like the truckers all getting together. Yeah, in part it is media, but it's also, if we think about, it is a kind of telepathy, even artificial intelligence, which isn't, it's quite controlled if we think about it. But, if we think about how we connect, if we took away all of the artificial intelligence, people would have used their minds far more in, hundreds and hundreds of years ago. That would have been more of a way of communicating or thinking that we've communicated. As an example, like you think of somebody and then a sign, of some sort comes to light, like you might see their name somewhere, or you might hear from them if you've just thought of somebody and then you hear from them. So it is a new moon, and new moons are about new beginnings, planting new seeds, until the culmination of a new full moon. We've also got the idea that a new moon is between 0 and 45 degrees. So if you've got your moon, I don't just mean Aquarius, I mean if you've got a moon that in your chart that's between 0 degrees and 45 degrees, then it is classed as a new moon because it goes in cycles and quarters and things. So the Saturn in Aquarius is where, this is what I think is fascinating, because although it's been squaring, and we'll go back to that, but it's been in a square, you can see here that Saturn is moving off now because that's 15 degrees and Uranus. So that's where we're breaking free of limitations. And this here is all about our Uranus. And we'll, in fact, I don't want to get lost there. I'll come to Uranus in a minute. But if we look at Saturn in Aquarius, it's the ability to work well in groups. And our groups, it's where we can be original and innovative. See, we can see innovative, if you get what I'm saying. I think that we have been, with what's gone on with the truckers. It's like, when I looked at it from my perspective, that the masculine has been very trodden down over the last couple of years, because when we're telling everybody, or when we hear that, the air is not safe, like it's almost become like the air is not safe and we've had to be masked up. And due to that, that would have held a lot of where females have been able, I'm just being quite classic here in my, what I'm explaining. I'm not saying it's exact. But if you think the feminine is able to communicate in ways on depth and emotion and really show who they are, it's easier for the feminine, not for everybody, but mainly as a rule. And then with the masculine, it's like, they are the providers, like traditionally. So in that, we have that men have been quite shut down. So seeing what came to mind when we're small, when I was small anyway, there were little toy cars and dolls and things like that, and seeing men with their grown-up trucks, like these huge blooming trucks, they're huge, aren't they? And what those trucks define, it's getting food to people, it's getting the stuff to people that they need in order to be, to eat, to, resources and linen and all sorts of things, just anything we need, it has to get to us via traveling. It travels through countries to countries. And so seeing these trucks and these guys stand up, and I know there are women truckers as well, so I'm not being, you know, just going with the male woman thing. But overall, I know a lot more men who are truckers than females, but I do know the women out there are doing beautiful work too. So I'm not just sticking to one of the sexes there. But overall, we can, if we look at history and go back, we can see that, you know, if we go back to caveman times, the man would have been going out to get the meat, so to speak, or the, you know, fruits and vegetables at that time, not as we have them now though, you know, seeds and things like that. So it's just fascinating that the men, I'm so pleased in my heart that the men have found a way to an outlet in order to say what they need to say. It's really important, and peacefully as well, so important. When we look at Martin Luther King and Gandhi, they would have basically, they believed in doing things peacefully, but, you know, not just sitting back and just letting things happen. We have to take part in great changes in this world. So the 11th house, if we look at, we've got the moon, sun and Saturn there. If we look at the 11th house, it's about friendship and relationship with groups of people. It's also about our hopes and dreams. And it's also friends and social acquaintances, organizations and activities. And it's basically the group of world service. So where we have to serve, you know, we're serving each other. You know, it's ultimately, whilst we can be individuated, we still need each other. So individuation isn't about being separate. It's just thinking, you know, the bigger picture and not so egocentric. So Uranus in Taurus is where, very fascinating to me, because that Uranus in Taurus was there from 1934 to 1942. So we had a world war then, yeah? We had 2 world wars, and I think that was the second one. I should know better, but I think it was from the dates, yes. So it is important to note that Uranus spends a long time in each sign, yeah? It doesn't go through quickly. The Venus, Mercury, and the sun and the moon, they all move around quicker. The sun takes a year, Mercury 88 days, goes retrograde 3 times a year. We've got Venus 26 days. And then we have Mars, which is 2 years. But when we start moving to the outer planets, we've got Jupiter at 12 years, and we've got Saturn about 29.5 years. So, and then we've got Uranus, which is 84 years. So that's a lifetime. So it goes slowly, yeah, more slowly around the chart. So it's basically where, when we want to understand this, we want to look at the house and the position for ourselves, but it's basically where we pursue new ways in society, and it's where humanity's resources come into focus. So it's our resources in Taurus, it's to do with our resources, and that's what's coming into focus. You know, the resources of our health, our land, our water, our soil, living on an earth. And, you know, these are our resources. So Aquarius, if we go back to the Aquarius aspect again, we've got humanitarian, initiative, group conscious, progressive, serving others. And it's where we can be rebellious, eccentric, aloof, emotionally superficial, and overly extroverted. So we need to balance. We've got the Aquarius there. We need to balance things. And the moon in Aquarius is where we feel secure with our intellect rather than our emotions, which maybe is a good thing, because we need a bit more intellect sometimes rather than just the emotion in things, particularly with what's going on in the world. And when we get the intellect going rather than the emotion, part emotion will get people moving, but then we need to have some intellect in order to bring things together, like the truckers coming together all over the world. You can't just do that with emotions. You need the intellect and then to bring it together. And we can be aloof with our emotions with the moon there. And also we can distrust our emotions, which we don't want to do. And that can make us, you know, irrational as well, and unpredictable if we don't trust our emotions or the emotions of others. So we want to bring that back in as well and have balance. And the moon in the 11th house, which it would be a traditional chart, on your own chart, it's going to be in a different house. I'll show you my chart in a minute so you get the idea of that. But the moon in the 11th house, it's again friends and acquaintances, and it's about each other. And you know, it can influence us both positively and negatively. So we can have people maybe that are unreliable or changeable and failing to live up to our ideals of true friendship. Or it may be that people friends change within themselves and move on emotionally, or simply that, you know, we lose contact with people. So we can see with, you know, the Aquarian energy of Saturn up there, you know, we have had a lot of splitting off, and also we do need security and we want a sense of safety, which is the moon. So again, we can just look at ourselves and think, what do we need to do? We've had the node here. The node going on has moved into the sign of Taurus, and I'm just having a nodal return, which is wonderful for me. It's a big shift in my life. And then the south node is in Scorpio. So we're going to look at that too. Knowing that the moon is at 1219 here degrees, you want to look on your chart where that is in Aquarius. So you'll see where it is on your chart. And we have got also this node. So let's go there. So the North Node in Taurus, it's a quest for us to overcome the, we want to stop distrusting change. We want to start trusting change, because in Taurus wants to stay stuck, the bull, and not want things to change. It wants the same patch of land, the same grass to eat, as an example, if it's a bull in a field. Wants the same regular people. But basically what we can do is, we've got to remember that the ruler is Venus of this node. The ruler is Venus. And if we look at Venus is up here in Capricorn, and this is to do with our inner needs as well. So with the node, it's where we need to create, outlets. We need creative outlets for our emotional world, so that when we're acting out creatively, then we're less likely to hit out at others. And part of the Taurian thing is not wanting change. So it's like, you can hit out at people when you don't want change. Change may be healthy, but you can almost stay stuck and be grumpy that I don't want to change. I don't want, and we're going through huge shift of change now. Like the changes that we thought that were taking place when we've had this virus at its height. Now the changes that were made, we're going to continue to make changes, because Pluto will continue to move into Aquarius, which is, if we think of what I've just said about the Uranian energy, because that's what it will be when Pluto in 2024 moves into the sign of Aquarius for 20 years until 2044. So with the node, we also want to not get, we've got the issue, I'm getting tongue-tied there. We've got the issue with the south node, is where, because of in the past we've suffered and had traumatic endings, maybe in past lives, or even in this life. I can definitely equate that to being a Scorpio south node in this life, that I have had trauma and traumatic endings like time and time again. And these traumas, and even if we can't remember them, imprints, and even our ancestors' imprints can leave us with trauma, if we think about it. And we're left with deep emotional wounds that are not just our emotional wounds. They're the wounds that we've carried forward from other people and possibly past lives, if you believe in that. And we can feel that we've been cheated. There can be a feeling of like, Scorpio past life. We can have this sense of being cheated. So therefore that makes us less trusting, and we don't trust the process of change, and that's what we need to do. We need to trust now this process of change over the next year and a half that we're going to be going through, and develop a newfound sense of peace in ourselves and get stability in our own lives. So it's about us doing that for ourselves. And Venus is the inner needs. We've got within the North Node or the South Node in Scorpio, it's overcoming the distrust of change, which is really important. Not clinging on to the past, not staying stuck in the past. And that's difficult. Some of us will need to work on ourselves to do that. And I've got a female group on Meetup that I do. I have 2 meetings a week on the inner child. Wednesdays, Saturdays, we work on codependency, which is very important in this time in our history, because a lot of us, maybe when we were younger, we believed, we're going to meet the one and we're going to be with one particular person, and all of those dreams and the Neptunian stuff is really great, but we need to work our own patch of land, so to speak. And I don't mean literally, but we can take it literal, to be creative in our own garden. And the more creative we get, the more whole we become. in all ways. So we want to get creative in the type of work we want to do. We want to get creative in how we earn money for ourselves, how we feed ourselves. And we can have a wonderful life. We can't stop the mishaps and the pain of life, but we can have an intention to make our life wonderful. And as we do that, we make our own life more wonderful, and not narcissistically so, but, you know, with others in mind, then we will have an easier time in life. And we will then also have like-minded people around us being that way. So I'm going to look at a few of these aspects and then jump over to show you what's happening with my chart. We've got the Sun square Uranus, which is separating. So the Sun square Uranus, which is separating. But this aspect can make us very individualistic, selfish and eccentric. So there's a bit of that going on. I don't think it's a bad thing totally. I think we've needed to reclaim a bit of our individualism. And there can be mental exhaustion with this as well, because the mind is, you know, very heightened, because Uranian energy is very electrical. And we want to be different, and we want to show others, you know, by examples. So it's where we're teaching and mentoring. You know, we're all doing it to each other. We're all teachers and mentors to each other. And the moon is conjunct Saturn, and this can give us stability and honesty, even in difficult situations, which I've seen going on with Joe Rogan situations. Some people I'm sort of pretty down the middle. I do have an opinion. Joe Rogan was going to be thrown off Spotify, not thrown off. People were suggesting that they're leaving Spotify in order to, or they will remove their accounts and not put their music on Spotify. But we've got to see the bigger picture, because if people are shut down and they're not allowed to speak their own truth, and those people are educated in their field, then we have a problem. You know, we can't go back 500 years and start like burning people at the stake and burning books because we don't like what somebody else is saying. That is not the way to go, because that becomes really, it forces us all to shut up and not say it like that and not have an opinion. You know, it's been really off-putting time for me, because I've wanted to express myself, but then you want to keep your resources going and your platforms, and you know, you can say the simplest thing and get a 90-day ban on Facebook as an example. Haha, if that's happened to you, it's happened to me too. So the moon is squaring Uranus. Also at this time, it's in a separation point. So you can see the moon is also in that square to Uranus. And this is about feeling where we can feel that we've been wronged and we need to do something about it, which is going on. And it's also where we can decide for radical changes. I really am pleased with what I'm seeing happen in the world, and some people listening to me may disagree with me, and that's okay. We're all entitled to our opinions, and we've all got different understandings of what's going on depending on what we've looked at. And for me personally, I had the COVID in 2020, March 2020, at the beginning of that time, and I have not got injected for my own reasons, and because I believed at the time that I'd have antibodies, and it, you know, it's possible I have. There's only one way of finding that out, but that was my belief. So I sort of stuck with it, and I was in a lot of fear as well. So when we start talking to people, instead of calling them anti this and anti that, people have reasons for doing what they do. You know, I eat a lot of healthy foods. I look at labels on things. So trying to give me anything that I don't really know what it is difficulty. It's hard enough for me to get a few paracetamol in me, because I'd rather take magnesium as an example. So I'm giving you examples there of how people can see things differently. And then other people will come from different understandings, and we'll be listening to different people. So I did 1,500 hours of looking at different videos and information, and I came to my own conclusion. And we've all got to allow ourselves to have this right, in my opinion, but some people may not agree. Then we going back to the astrology, this is part of it, because astrology is to do with our feelings. So Mercury is sextile Neptune, Mercury is conjunct Pluto. So the Mercury conjunct Pluto is an interesting one up there. And this conjunction, it can make it chaotic and can make people's consciousness and subconscious thinking process interweave. This is what happens, because Pluto is the depth and the unknown. So we've got the subconscious thinking process interweaving with the conscious thinking process. And that can, you know, to me, that's a bit of telepathic, or in my dreams, I've been having really wild dreams lately. So that can occur. It's also where we may not feel very flexible and think that we're infallible. And also this conjunction brings a desire. We don't want to leave anything unexplained. We want to understand. So it's excellent for certain people, psychologists, scholars, criminology, psychoanalysis. And if you have that on your birth chart, Mercury conjunct Pluto, brilliant. You know, it defines what you would be interested in. For me, I've got the Mercury conjunct my North Node at birth, but also I've got Mars conjunct my North Node and the Sun and my North. So I've got a mix going on there in my 6th house. I've got Uranus conjunct Pluto on my MC at birth. So we're all going to have different things going on. And that's generational, the Pluto conjunct Uranus, because Pluto and Uranus take a long time to move. So 60s babies, and 1966, 64, 65, 66, and 67, etc. So it can make people very talented at speaking, but this is definitely where we're uncovering. And with that retrograde, that's going to go direct. We've also got Venus, which has just gone direct. I'm going to show you hours back how that's happened. So if we go back, I think it's so many hours ago. We want the R on Venus. That's what I'm doing. There you go. So stationary. So that was the 30th of January, and it's going direct. It's gone direct, and then Mercury is going to go direct. So watch this. We're going to go. I think it's actually the middle of February. Let's go by days just to get this. I didn't write it down. There you go. It's the 5th. So we go back a day. So Mercury, it's the 4th, 5th of February. It's going to go direct, which is great. So we all get moving again. I've been a bit stagnant with this one. Not stagnant, but very inward, which is good for me because it's people get scared of retrogrades, but they rewind, review, release, relax. That's the plan. And then you're collecting and you're going through solving, sorting all of these communications. So now let's go to my chart briefly, and I'm going to new share. And what did I do with it? Let's see. Have I moved it? I might need to, let's see here. I might have actually made an error of the last few days of Mercury retrograde. Let's see if I find it. So maybe not. I'm going to try and bring it up because I thought it was really interesting, and hopefully I find it. So bring up my chart. That's what I'm trying to do. If you see all these things going on here, and we've got Google. So this is Mercury retrograde, not me. I'm going to put it down to Mercury retrograde. So if I go to astro.com, and then I'm going to do a new share, and we're going to go astro.com. Let's come out of that. Astro.com, new share. There you go. Brilliant. All right. So this is going to be my chart, and I'm going to show you the second. It's in my 2nd, 3rd house. So you can see your own chart. So new share, I'm on there, and I'm going to come out of spotlight. Okay, brilliant. So thank you for bearing with me on that. Okay, so you can see there that that is literally my house there. It's 12 degrees. So I've got it literally on the cusp of my 2nd and 3rd, which makes a lot of sense to me, part in communications and part of dealing with my values. So I've got a new moon where I'm solving those things. So a new moon covers the whole month ahead, and the full moon is 2 weeks. So I think that's it. I got a bit lost there at the end, or not, all down to Mercury. So if you'd like me to look at your chart with you, or your solar return, if you've got your birthday coming up, fabulous things to look at. I can tell you, I've got a great solar return coming up for this year. And I will leave it there. And I hope you really enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.